We are live here with a couple of my buddies. I'm Zach Burns, as you can tell by the nameplate. Toriano Porter joins me from Kansas City, and everybody knows Terry Holloman from Seattle. How you doing, Terry?
A couple people. I'm good, guys. How
A
are you
lot
guys
of
doing
people,
tonight?
Terry. A lot of people know you.
I'm feeling bad right now, though. I need to get a booster seat. I feel like my head is much lower than you guys, man.
You look silly.
What's going
You look
on
a little
here?
silly right now. Yeah, maybe you do want to readjust.
You gotta be 6 foot over, sir. You got to be 6 foot over, Johnny.
So Toriano, Terry, I lived in Kansas City for a really brief amount of time, but it feels like one of my homes. I was only there for 18 months. And then an even briefer amount of time, Toriano and I worked together at a talk station there called KMBZ. He was our producer at a station that did not value producers very much at all. He did a tremendous job for us, and then went on to become part of the editorial staff at the Kansas City Star, which was really, really great to see. I follow Toriano on Twitter just to keep tabs on what's going on in Kansas City. Before we get to Kansas City, though, we can't not talk about the Seattle, because it is the epicenter of what was formerly known as, well, the first cop-free zone in America, I suppose. The first officially declared cop-free zone. It was first known as Chaz, the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. Now it's in the midst of being rebranded CHOP. And then there's argument over what CHOP should stand for, whether it should be occupied or organized. So I always like to look. I live in the bubble of Seattle. I always like to reach outside the bubble. Toriano, what does the Kansas City think about CHOP?
Wow. I mean, radical comes to mind. Radical. They like to throw the boogeyman out there. You know, the boogeyman is Soros, right?
Right.
They like to throw that out there.
Yes, George Soros. We should that's one of my favorite narratives ever, is that this billionaire who there's a few names that conservatives are obsessed with that I've never thought about. Saul Alinsky. I mean, I'm vaguely familiar with his teachings, but don't know very much about him. But you would think that I'm living by his playbook. And then we all have this steady paycheck coming in from George Soros, so we go and participate in these protests. Obviously that name hasn't been circulating here, but there's something that I find just hysterical that it's been circulating in other areas.
Right, but just looking from the outside in Seattle, you guys from the beginning, it was very intense out there. And I was talking with my colleagues today, and they were commending the Seattle police chief for steadying everything out there. So the exact opposite happened here. From the beginning, not the exact opposite, but something similar, but not on the scale of Seattle. But the police went heavy-handed at first during the protest, the first 2 days of the George Floyd protest. Then they kind of backed off and de-escalated. So now we're in a position now where they're trying to open up dialogue and listen. But from just outside looking in for Chaz, it's in the Midwest, we call it radical.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of people here that call it radical.
In Seattle, we call it Tuesday.
Right.
It's just Tuesday.
Terry, have you been down there?
I haven't been down there. I have friends that have gone down. I've had friends that have gone and did the live stream tour of it. And I got to tell you, honestly, for those on the outside looking in, it's rather benign. Like I saw people walking around, drinking coffee, eating tacos.
Yeah.
I didn't witness any of the violence or the anarchy that people are getting sold around the country. It's weird. It's like a block party.
Anarchy. It is a block party. It's a very slowly unfolding block party / farmers market / venue for performance artists. If this is what anarchy looks like, anarchy is way more boring than I ever thought that it would be. It's quite dull. There's been some skirmishes, but remember, this is the middle of Capitol Hill.
Right.
There's going to be skirmishes. There's just that many people. But overall, the way I've seen it described in the national media, primarily Fox, where this morning chaos was a word used, which I suppose technically it is chaotic, but not in the sense that we use that word.
It's not disaster. Buildings aren't on fire. People aren't running for their lives.
No.
Chaz has got me.
Right, exactly. For the most part, I see tweets mostly arguing about Chaz versus Chop. And I've been there twice myself. And again, it doesn't feel like a farmer's market as much as it feels like, those like final 3 rows of the farmer's market when people are just selling like really stuff that shouldn't be part of any sort of sales thing, where it's like one individual bag of ramen, one sock, like, like kind of the trashy part of the flea market. But people are selling their wares. There's a lot of people painting. If you weren't inspired by the visual of the Black Lives Matter, that was painted on the street, then, you're no fan of the movement.
Right. So my question here, real quick, Zach, have you been down? You've been down?
I've been twice. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So here's the question that I have for you, and Toriano, you tell me what you think from your perspective of an outsider looking in. It seems like this quote unquote anarchist movement is the thing that has taken over the area downtown. That's what it's all about, having the autonomous zone, free of authority, free of government rule, and that's what the narrative has become. Is it still Black Lives Matter? Is it still? I mean, that was the catalyst for this whole thing taking off. Is it now just the anarchist movement?
Zach or me?
Go ahead, Toriano.
Or Zach from somebody from the inside that's looking at it, and Toriano.
For me, it's
like on the outside. What do you think?
That's always that. All right, we'll just stay inside for a second. It's kind of. I'm sure you both remember the Occupy movement, which was happened in 2008 after the recession started in 2008, really started gaining momentum. And in 2011, we started seeing the Occupy camps set up in pretty much every major city, the way that we're seeing protests in every major city here with Black Lives Matter. The Occupy message got lost very, very quickly. Initially, they had, and this is something that the Black Lives Matter has always suffered from, they had really, really great succinct messaging. Like, you never had to explain Black Lives Matter doesn't mean that all lives don't matter, which is a conversation I've had 7,000 times at this point. They had something called, we are the 99%. There's this 1% of America that is manipulating the game for the rest of us. And it's not an even playing field. It never will be. Some of us are going to be marginalized financially and remain poor forever. And it was like, wow, who wouldn't get on board with that? But the problem is that camps started forming, and it became about anything but that. Just became about agitation. It came about just sort of hanging, which is a lot of what Chaz is right now. So when I see movements happen like this, and most of the past couple of weeks, the protests have been 100% Black Lives Matter, silence is violence. We've seen that. But now that Chaz has just sort of learned that it's going to be left alone, and people are just playing soccer, drinking microbrews, I wonder how many conversations are actually still being had about the Black Lives Matter movement. And is it more about how do we just sustain Chaz? Or is it about what Chaz actually represents? What does it mean that we have taken the surrounding area around the East Precinct? What does that mean? What are we going to do with it? And I don't know if all those things are directly, I'm quite sure all those things aren't directly connected with the Black Lives Matter movement. What do you think, Toriano?
That's an interesting perspective. So here at KCMO, day 18 of the protest, I've been on the ground for about 15 of those 18 days. And what I've witnessed is there's a coalition of people, diverse amount of people that are sticking to the message that Black Lives Matter, They are harping on the fact that they want more accountability with the police department. They want local control of the police department. I don't know if you guys know, but the Kansas City Police Department is one of the largest police departments in the nation that does not have local control of their police department.
Mm-hmm.
They do not answer to the mayor or the city council. They answer to a police board who's appointed by the governor. This setup is centuries old. It was started in the gangster era days of Tom Pendergrass. And if people do a Google search of Tom Pendergrass, he was a notorious mob figure in Kansas City who had connections to politics and crime. But so
Not
that
to be
model
confused with Teddy Pendergrass, but
exactly be confused. Nobody cameras here in the police department.
No.
So the message has been clear here. It's been consistent. There's no co-op. Black Lives Matter. Police brutality is wrong. Police accountability is where it's at. So let's change the model of policing here. Let's get local control, establish local control. Let's institute body cameras. Now they didn't get a grant. They're gonna roll it out at some point. We're talking 2020 here. They're just not getting body cameras. This is one of the largest agencies in America without body cameras. So the message has still been the same. Now I was out at a protest this morning, discrimination at the local Veterans Hospital. And one of the messages were Black employees' lives matter, but also Black Lives Matter. So the messages stayed the same. I was in Brookside, Zach. You may know Brookside when you.
I know Brookside. Yeah.
Predominantly white. Went to a protest the other day. It was a kneel for night. And remember Gregory Floyd. The message was the same. Black Lives Matter. So it hasn't been co-opted here.
That's good news. Kansas City's similar to Seattle in a lot of ways in that it's definitely a city of the haves and the have-nots. You just mentioned Brookside, and it's when I first moved there and then started to get to know the city and started to cover what was happening in the city, and hearing about, wow, Kansas City, this lovely place that I live in, also has this homicide rate. It's because there's this whole marginalized area of the city that most people don't really know about, and I'm sure people from those communities are now having their voices heard.
Without question. 82 homicides so far. We're on a record pace. And
that's like 6 years worth in Seattle.
Wow. Honestly. It's amazing that the status quo continues. And I think, people like to say, the naysayers of the protest here like to say, well, what about black on black crime in Kansas City? Well, the people can police themselves, right? But if you don't have trust in the police, basically you have no protection. Mm-hmm. So if I can't trust you to protect me, to be a witness to a crime, why would I be a witness to the crime? And what I've learned over the last 18 days, is the Kansas City Police Department and the Jackson County Prosecutor's Office, the Jackson County, Missouri prosecutor, the local prosecutor, protected witnesses to crime the way they did the Country Club Plaza shopping district during the early days of this protest, then you would have more community buy-in. We don't have that. So you have a high homicide rate. Mm-hmm. You also have a low clearance rate because there's a lack of cooperation. People don't cooperate because if you are heavy-handed in your approach to everyday policing, you create this barrier. And this barrier that people don't want to break in its police-community relations. So the police-community relations is fractured here. Until you get a grip on that, you're going to have a high homicide rate. So if you start being a community partner with the people and let the people police themselves, but you have that authority to come in and get the bad guys off the street.
Okay, but
you make this.
That's what we're talking about here is just a lot in the past week. Again, these movements have really bad branding. I have to say that the Black Lives, the phrase Black Lives Matter inevitably was going to get people to say all lives matter. How could the word that's missing is two, obviously. I mean, anybody who put just even a modicum of thought into it figured it out. But now we have defund the police, which you can imagine is terrifying.
Can we curse on this show? We're live. I don't know. This is my first time.
Yeah, go ahead. I don't care.
It scares the crap out of people. I keep people. Can you imagine defunding the police for someone who doesn't know what it means? So
yeah,
I haven't used the word. I don't believe in defunding the police, but what I do believe in is accountability.
Mhm.
And you have a budget here in Kansas City. It was just extended by $10 million this year.
Yeah.
It's like a $260 million budget. It was just extended by 10.5 million. Take that money instead of putting more officers on the street, reallocate that money and do something that's going to build relations with the people. That's what it's about. So when you say defund the police, people get scared and they run for the hills.
Yeah, and you can understand why. It's just because you have people then that can skew that phrase into, okay, I'm assaulted, my house is broken into, whatever it is, and now I have nobody to call.
Right. That's not it.
But yeah.
One of the things I stay away from is those words that would scare people.
Yeah.
You won't. I'm talking about it now, but I won't tweet it out or I won't defund the police. You won't hear me say that other than the context of this because I don't want to put misinformation out.
Yeah.
But the question here, guys, now is the cat out of the bag? Is it too late? Is it too late to rebrand that message? Is it too late to suck that back in and say, hey, listen, guys, that's not what we mean. We don't want to get rid of the entire police force. We just want to, we want some reform here. We want to restructure things here. Instead of defund, can we? I mean, because some of the people out there that I've heard from the other side of the aisle, let's just say that, have already taken this message and run with it.
Right?
The same way they
well,
do.
Now you can't call the police.
Yeah,
exactly. So
the question is can it be rebranded before November?
I believe so.
Good. I'm glad that you believe so. Because I believe so too.
Only reason I said that is, again, a conversation this morning with my colleagues. One of the things we talked about was it's not about defunding the police. It's reimagining how you police your city. And if you start looking at it in those terms, then you get the buy-in. You have to reimagine what 21st century policing is. And, I don't know if you guys saw, but a lot of people have saw the tape in Atlanta with the gentleman that was running from the police. He took the taser. Before it even got to that point, offer this guy a ride home. Offer this guy Uber to get home. Be a partner in the community and not an occupying force per se. That thing could have went totally different. So if you reimagine how you approach policing, instead of making him the bad guy and taking him to jail, maybe you offer him a ride home. Park your car, let's go home. Be a community partner.
Before we jump off that subject, I just real quick, that particular situation, it still baffles me. And I mean, I don't understand how you have basically a 26-minute interaction with someone. And it seemed, for a police and a citizen interaction, relatively cordial.
Yes.
And for it to instantly turn on a dime to where he gets shot in his back twice, I mean, it makes no sense. And like you said, there needs to be some redeveloping of how we do our policing.
Do you ever watch, and Terry, maybe you watch the same way? I mean, it's going to sound like a weird analogy, but I've rewatched the Super Bowl where the Seahawks lose to the Patriots in the last seconds, right? And then you watch it.
I'll go ahead.
But you rewatch it, and then some illogical part of you says, well, maybe it'll turn out differently this time. Like maybe they'll do the sensible thing and hand it off to
Marshawn.
Yeah, exactly. The running back who was built exactly for that situation.
Yes.
When I watched the entirety of that video, that illogical part of me started speaking again. Like, well, look how well things are being handled right now. Because the officer's just trying to get him over to the side. Maybe it'll turn out different. And, that I almost held like this sense of hope that I won't see what I already know has happened, the same way that, of the Super Bowl example. And it's like, yeah, for 25 out of 26 minutes, things are going fine. And you wonder, what is the problem when it comes to training, where at any point an officer has it in their head that it's okay to shoot someone who is at that point hurting no one in the back as they're running away.
Right. And again, before it even gets to that point, where's the empathy? Like, where's the human connection? All right, this obviously the guy was under some kind of influence.
Oh yeah.
I don't want to condemn the gentleman.
There's lots of things you can accept as true. He
Right.
shouldn't have been out under the influence.
Right.
He should not have taken the taser. You can accept those things as true and also still believe there's no way he should be dead right now.
No way at all. Before it even gets to the point where he's running away, be a steward of the people. Because here's what we forget sometimes: the police department is run by taxpayer funds. Now you have these nonprofit police foundations that raise money, but for the most part, they'll get their budget from taxpayers. The police department works for the citizens of their city. We don't work for them, but we can be partners. Let's be partners, community partners. That's how you make a dent in violent crime. That's how you get people home and not put in the morgue.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we're gonna get you home. Somehow we're gonna get you home. We're gonna call a cab. You're gonna walk to your sisters, whatever. Let's get you home. And it's just hard for me to see that. And I hate that happened to that gentleman. And I want to say his name. Is it Rayshard?
Rayshard Brooks.
Yes, sir. Rayshard Brooks.
So what does that look like then? Is it because right now, as it is, the one thing that is really going to be difficult to imagine is that a beat cop in, let's use our example of Capitol Hill, in uniform, whatever, is somehow going to be able to reestablish the trust of the neighborhood. How does that ever happen again? And I'm talking, mostly in heavily populated areas like Seattle, a lot of the places. Mission, Kansas is not going to have the same sort of issue probably that Kansas City is. Does it mean that we take away the intimidation of the badge, of the baton, of the weaponry? How is it that people feel comfortable with police going forward?
Wow.
Or whatever we call them.
Wow. That's great question, Zach.
It's heavy, right?
Yeah. Again, inherently, the job of policing is difficult, right? And we have to respect that. We have to respect that these people, these men and women of the law have a job to do. But it's also a thing about culture, and it starts at the top. So the police board here in KC, the police chief, they set the culture. And if the culture is we're going to work with the community, and we're not going to harass people, brutalize people, shoot with tear gas, because that happened out the gate. People protest turned violent once the police started pepper spraying people and tear gas. Now we moved on that, but it happened, and we can't discredit that. And by the way, the police department still hasn't apologized for that heavy-handed tactic. But I witnessed the de-escalation, and that's why I came to the conclusion that it works. I saw protesters still angry, mad, still wanted to trap the plaza, going toe-to-toe with the police right here, cursing them out. The police, instead of this, they went there, de-escalation. And they backed off. Doesn't mean you're soft or you're not in control. You're the authority figure. Your last recourse of action should be violent.
Right.
So once they established that they were going to de-escalate, and that's what they did, they allowed the people to march. This thing went from, in a span of a week, where they were tearing up buildings, tear gassing people, pepper spraying people, to the police was actually blocking off traffic for protesters to march to the street of the Country Club Plaza. I saw it with my own eyes.
And that could have been from day one. I saw, in Flint, Michigan, I think it's the sheriff there. And, Flint, Michigan, no one's really happy there, right? A friend who did morning radio for like 6 months there, one of those shows is like, hey, get up, everybody. I'll give you a free pizza at 7:15. He's like, nobody's happy here because industry is gone. The water's been bad for 3.5 years now. But so here's a guy who's in a community filled with consistent tension, even before George Floyd's murder. And the first night, he engaged with the protesters. He's like, I'm going to walk with you. And
I saw that. Yeah.
It was the simplest. And then I saw a Baltimore chief also go out to the protesters and in that chant of say their name, was reading off the names of people whose lives had been taken from police departments around the country, and immediately bonded with them. And once that happens, there's not going to be an exchange of tear gas and whatever the crowd is throwing at them. It's like the amazing thing to me is that other police departments saw those examples and still chose to behave as they did.
I think, you know what, that's a great example. What I think has happened and what needs to change in this country is over the course of our history, talking about the Black community in America and our relationship with the police, is it's always been a dehumanizing experience. I think every single time we have, you know, had experiences with law enforcement, more often than not, we have been treated less than human. You're talked down to, and you're made to feel less than. And that's something that, okay, you experienced that as a young man, but you also have heard it from your older brothers, your older cousins and uncles. You heard it from your dad. Your dad heard it from your grandpa. That this is what you're going to expect from the police officers. So that instantly, when you're dehumanized, like in that situation, and you come to that situation with that feeling of animosity already, that's a powder keg waiting to explode. And so I think it is becoming upon our law enforcement moving forward to learn how to treat people in more of a human way. And I think if we can do that, and again, Zach, you and I have talked about this in the past, if you deal with someone on a personal level, treat that person as a human with dignity, as a man, because as sometimes you look at some of these people that are in these marginalized neighborhoods and these marginalized, you know, these ethnic backgrounds, the only thing sometimes we feel we have is our manhood. Like that's the only thing as an African American male that comes from a lower economic situation. All I got is my manhood, and you trying to take it away. That's an instant problem. So that's my 2 cents. Go ahead.
No, Terry, you raised an interesting point, and I'm glad you said that. Even though, you know, I'm in the middle, you're on the West Coast. Interesting you said that, because I was talking to some young people out here in KC. Man, I said, imagine being able to get in your car, turn your music up, ride to go pick up your girlfriend or go get something to eat, and you don't have to worry about being harassed, pulled over, brutalized, or going to jail. Because you know what happens when we get pulled over? The first thing we say is, man, why you pull me over? Why you pull me over? Right. And so what happens is the police mistake that for aggression and anger. Right. And what it is, we're annoyed, you know. And then from there, like Terry said, it's a powder keg, and that thing can go either way. And it's real, and it comes from experience too. Like Terry was saying, you get the stories from your people, but once you experience it, especially as a young man, it shapes you. I had my run-in with the police when I was 19 and 20. I'm 46 now. My dealings with the police now are professional. I have to talk to the PIOs, the public information officers, the police chief, the sergeants, all that. I once did a ride-along. The first time in my life I ever been in a police car, I was in the front seat. So, you know, but that came with age, you know. In 19 and 20, I wasn't worried to try to be peace with the police. So, because of their hairy-handed approach towards me, and I was just a young man driving and pulled over, like, why are you messing with me? So, I appreciate you raising that point, Terry. That was just a really good point. Even though we're in different parts of this country, some of the same things we're going through.
The funny thing is, go ahead, Terry.
No, I was just going to say, and that's the thing that I wanted. I tried to make people understand this for years. You know, we're understanding the Black Lives Matter movement, and people are saying all this stuff like it's not real or this stuff and all this stuff. And just to go to what Toriano's saying here is, he's in the Midwest. I'm over here on the West Coast. I grew up in the South. I lived in Canada. So I've had my experiences with people across the country. I promise you, people that are out there watching and listening, we didn't have a conference call like when we were 5 years old to come up with this idea. Hey, listen, let's tell everybody we've been marginalized. Let's tell everybody we've been brutalized by police officers. Let's tell everybody we've had all these very exact same situations that we've dealt with. It just is a fact. Like I've never met him. He's never met me. We've had, I guarantee we've had the exact same experiences as young Black men growing up in America as each other, and as the next person that lives in Alabama, and as somebody that lives in New York City.
Yeah. The one thing that baffles me is that there are so many white people who are And I'm annoyed about white people criticizing, with this fake white wisdom of other white people. But I've known this about the police and black people forever because I grew up in a lily white town. So of course I listened to nothing but hip hop because that's what we do. And once hip hop started being cartoonish and about basketball and, the horrible early 1980 to 84 rap, once it actually started talking about real issues with the advent of NWA, there was at least 30% of every album dedicated to problems that the particular artist has with the cops. The first movie that I saw with a primarily black cast was Boys in the Hood. And then and this is a story of millions of people just like me. And then 25 years later, we're like, what? They have problems with cops? This is from out of nowhere.
Wow. Yeah, it's amazing. That's amazing. Ferguson happened right down the street here from KC. I was born and raised in St. Louis, 20 minutes from Ferguson, man. One of the only regrets I have as a professional. Oh, Zach, you didn't tell me it was happy hour. We can drink on the show.
Oh, you definitely can. This is Diet A&W.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, no,
He's
please
good.
do.
I'm gonna break out my watermelon Ciroc. But Ferguson happened right down the street, and one of the regrets that I had, I was living in KC area at the time, was I didn't get down there to cover it, even though it was my hometown. So I've made a concerted effort to stay out here every day until the people get what they want, and it's been amazing to see the shift and the change in the narrative. People are trying to hijack. One of the first mugshots that came out of Kansas City was 4 African American people trying to. They were charged with theft for looting local shopping district. Right. The next image that came out, the police are looking for 4 to 5 white guys who bombed a police vehicle.
Yes.
Like they're down here. Come on.
Right.
The Black Lives Matter.
Well, same with the Wendy's. The Wendy's in Atlanta was set on fire by.
I have my take on it. I'm not going to give it now, but I have to do some more investigation. But to know that people are down here starting stuff and trying to co-opt the movement was real, just heartbreaking. But the narrative has changed back to what's really important. That's Black Lives Matter, and companies are starting to come out and school districts are starting to come out. And
what do you think about that? Because I got an email from Uber, like the corporate response to this, and Uber to me was particularly egregious. Like, okay, we just want you to know that we care about Black lives, and I'm like, well, you really don't, because you employ about 50,000 East Africans and you treat them like garbage. So you really don't care. It's just go ahead.
I was gonna say my response to corporate America is putting out these statements: match your words with action.
Yeah.
If you haven't came with an immediate plan of action, what you're gonna do to change the culture within your system, you can save the platitudes and the PR statements. You might as well just sit it out, because one thing I've learned in the media is silence cannot be quoted.
Right.
So if you come out and you talk that talk, you got to walk the walk. And here locally, everyone was on the George Floyd bandwagon, and God bless that young man and his family. And I'm 46, so it hit home, and bless him and his family. But all the local people here were coming out with statements about George Floyd. I'm like, I've been covering the public safety here in Kansas City for a long time, and the police down here have murdered people too. Excuse me, let me take murder. Have taken people's lives with no accountability. Stolen the force.
Right.
And you coming up with statements, but you're not asking accountability for your local police department. I got a problem with that.
Murder seems like a synonym for what you just said.
No, I don't want to say murder. I want to say life.
Yeah.
The thing that troubles me about the whole corporate situation and the way that they're getting involved with it right now is this. They could have got involved when it was Trayvon Martin.
Oh my God.
They could have got involved when it was Freddie Gray. They could have got involved when it was Mr. Garner in New York selling loose cigarettes. They could have got involved when it was Mr. Brown down there in Fort Ferguson. They could have got involved at any step along the way. Sandra Bland, all these things made national news.
Yep.
All these things affected the Black lives and the Black Lives Matter movement. All of a sudden, something clicked with corporate America that all of America, white America, white males aged 25 to 54 were paying attention. People
Yeah.
who have ready money to spend
Right.
are now paying attention. And so now corporate America all of a sudden gets a heart and a conscience and believes what Black Lives Matter has been saying for the past 15 years. And
Do you think they
that's
do,
the
though?
challenge I have.
Do you think that
I
they
think it's
believe?
a money play. I think
It's
it's a money play. Absolutely.
which to me is okay, I guess. It's because
Ends justify the means.
I suppose. I mean, you don't want to be the company that doesn't say something at this point. Whether at least
out here they have.
do we?
Was that?
There's plenty of companies out here who have not said anything,
Or have said the wrong thing in the instance of CrossFit. That
and
was.
I was gonna say.
Well, sometimes it's best to pay to know your audience, right?
Right.
Maybe your brand.
It's true.
Maybe your brand is that it doesn't co-align with Black Lives Matter.
Right.
And what I was gonna say was no bouquets because you don't get a pat on the back for doing what you're supposed to do. Like you said, Terry, this has been happening. It's not new.
Yes.
You don't get a pat on the back for doing what you're supposed to do, which is take a stand.
Well,
with what's right, with something that's right. It's not like we're asking you to take a stand with something that is like outlandish. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we're not asking you, hey, listen, Black Lives Matter, give us $1 million each.
Right. Well, good, they're not offering that.
It's not on the table.
I think
nobody's even demanded that.
All we have for is dignity, respect, and to be treated equal. And that's it.
Does it surprise you, though, that they didn't say anything earlier? Because George Floyd is different, not in the sense that he was murdered by the cops, but he was murdered by the cops already when tension was high. People are suffering financially. People are suffering because they haven't been able to leave their house. Maybe they've had a loved one die from coronavirus, which is the first time that we've said coronavirus in 37 minutes. This is the world that we're in.
And don't forget, Ahmaud Arbery was fresh on our minds as well.
Yeah, that happened, and that that led to the same sort of mild uproar that we got from Freddie. I mean, Freddie Gray definitely led to a lot more, but Eric Garner was caught being choked to death on camera. And, we didn't get emails from Uber then. We saw protests certainly in New York, but they were more regionalized. They didn't spread to Kansas City, not in any meaningful way. They didn't spread to Seattle in any meaningful way. There's something about all this storm of just anger and injustice. And then you see George Floyd beg to see his dead mom. And, it's something that no matter how heartless or how all lives matter or blue lives matter or whatever nonsense that you default to normally, you can't not feel tremendous amounts of heartbreak, which then turns to anger, which corporations then turn into potentially a new consumer base.
I'll tell you. Go ahead, Tori.
No, you got it. You got it, Terry.
No, I was going to tell you guys my opinion, what I think has happened in this instance when we're talking about the movement taking shape the way it has this time around. And I hate to sound pessimist about our country and our fellow countrymen, but I'll just be honest with it because I'm part of it too. I think because of the COVID virus and because of the pandemic and the lockdown that we were in, our lives were completely shut down. Most of us were locked in the house, right? We didn't have to worry about getting our kids to school. We didn't have to worry about homework. We didn't have to worry about extracurricular activities. Who's going to pick up Johnny from baseball? Who's taking Sally to tutoring? Everything was shut down and we became hyper-focused, right? You remember at the beginning of the lockdown, everybody was trying to figure out, what are we going to watch on Netflix? What's coming up? What are we going to binge watch? Because we were so bored. I think
Tiger King. When's the last time you talked about Tiger King? It's all America talked about for 17 days.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this is kind of, unfortunately or fortunately, however way you want to look at it. And I'm going to say it's a silver lining. I'll say fortunately, this was what we had to focus our attention on. First, it was the Ahmaud Arbery case, and everybody was just so taken aback by that, and it had our complete focus, and people were supportive of that. We were going to go on our 2.23 run, right? And America was chimed in and dialed into that. And so the next thing that happened was we got an opportunity to watch a man die, like from beginning to end, like, beg for his life, beg for his mother, beg for his children. And I think we all got a chance to, when I say we all, I'm talking about white America, to tell you the truth.
Yep.
Is because we knew what was going on. White America got a chance to slow down and see that happen in real time. And it's almost like, this is real?
Yeah.
Like Tiger King? That really happened?
Yeah.
You black people have really been getting, that's real? So yeah, I think that's part of the phenomenon.
Right. What shook me up about that video was that the people were telling the officer, that's not right. And the one guy standing there on guard, blocking the people from getting to the, like, that's not how you do this. And that's what upset the people. But for white America to see it, and they're getting involved, and any movement has to have allies. Let's just be real. When you start talking about white America has the spending power and the capital power. They have the outrage factor. But once white America got involved, it amplified, and this when you get these nationwide protests. But we knew. We from Michael Brown to Eric Garner, from everyone in between, Trayvon, everyone. Sandra Bland, everyone. We knew. We knew. We already knew.
Will you be honest though? Are you a little bit annoyed by the white people that have come on board in this particular? No,
I'm not.
Good with allies.
Your true intention will reveal itself in time.
Right. But what if their true intention? Because here's a secret that I know, and a lot of people I've talked to know, is that, and maybe this is another ends justify the means things, is that for a lot of white progressives, especially here in Seattle, which is primarily, I mean, certainly, the black population here is incredibly small. Their biggest wish in life is to have a black friend.
Oh, wow.
They want nothing more. And they would just go home with the satisfaction that they've been acknowledged by their black friend that day. And
they want to be down with the cause. Huh?
Yeah, exactly.
If you're buying lunch, I will be.
I've never heard that was that. That's a good one. I don't know.
It's true. I've watched it happen. I mean, and then this is the conversation that I want to finish up on here. Liberalism is actually being put under a microscope right now, not necessarily by conservatives, because for them we're all the same. Liberals are the far radical left, doesn't matter, whatever. But liberals now are looking towards the future of liberalism, and then there's the liberals that let's just take your instance of our national candidate Joe Biden. Compromises, has worked with Republicans, doesn't necessarily always vote pretty much always votes with his own party, but is willing to make some consolations to get a good bill passed instead of a perfect bill passed. And then there is the culture that we have right now, a form of liberalism which is much more pure, much more stringent, and much more willing to cast out other progressives, which is this is the woke culture. And part of me is very, very inspired by the fact that no, you meet our standards or you're gone. And then the other part of me is horrified because people that you would agree with on 85% of the issues, that 15% now is completely fracturing this group of people. And I know I'm repeating idiot Bill Maher points, and he says it's much more stupidly, but it is something like, okay, what does the future of progressivism, is probably a better word than liberalism, what does it look like? Is it like you're all in or you're partially in, but that's not good enough? At that point, we just castigate you to being part of the opposition almost.
You want me to take this? You want to take a swing at it? I think, to start out with, I think that, in 2020, we need to kind of take a page out of the conservative playbook, and how they got Donald Trump elected. And it's like by any means necessary, everybody get on board. Let's get on the boat, and we're all going to steer in one direction. And I think the progressive movement needs to do that right now. Okay, this is where we're at. This is the person who, or the people who are leading the movement right now. It may, it may be like castor oil. I got to swallow a little bit and hold my nose while it goes down, right? Because we're at a point in this country right now, if we're just being honest, we're at a tipping point. And if we have another, and I hate to try to sway people politically on here, but if we have another 4 years like the last 3.5 we've had, we're in trouble, man. We're in a whole heap of trouble. So I think what we need to do is get the people who say they're progressive in line, get control of what you need to get control of the, politically what you need to get control of, and then say, hey, this is where we're going forward as a movement. Now, where we go from there, that's on who's ever running the show. But I just think we need to, all get on the same boat right now.
Yeah,
Toriano?
Absolutely 100% agree. You can't jump off the bandwagon per se. You got to be in it for the long haul. This thing takes work to dismantle systems. It takes work. And
the whole point of the grand old party, the good old party, is that they don't like change. So conservatives are pretty loath to change anything, unless it's tax code in terms of sheltering money offshore. They certainly are good in like rewriting laws like that, but in terms of actual cultural change, they're not. The Republican Party, as we know it now, is loath to do that. It's just not in the forefront of their minds. The whole goal of the party is to preserve wealth. So change doesn't really bode well for that.
And I just want to make one disclaimer before we leave too. I'm not a bleeding heart liberal that's just gung ho progressive. Let's walk in the street naked and throw away money, just pass money around like that. You know what I'm saying? I would say I'm somewhat fiscally conservative. I run my household relatively
but that's
conservative, but that's exactly so. Yeah. But I see the direction we're going as a nation, and it's backwards, and it's not right. So we need to do something drastic to correct the turn. Like the Titanic, it had to make a big, gigantic turn, or else it was going to hit the iceberg. And guess what? It didn't make it, and we know the end result. So let's not be the Titanic.
What if we just got like a new flag or anthem or something? Just rebrand the whole thing. Like when Value Jet had all those crass issues, they just changed the name of the country. What if we just try something like that? Just kind of.
We have to dismantle these inequitable systems, man. That's where it began.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's
deeper than a flag.
That's beyond. I mean, that's just what America is now. It's this lie of capitalism that we've been telling ourselves for especially the last 30 years, where you really are still sold a bill of goods that if you just work harder, you're going to succeed in America. Whoever came up with the phrase, the American dream, probably thought that they were doing a great thing for the country, but that's one of the most destructive phrases this country's actually ever seen. Because people still think that all they have to do is put in a 60-hour week instead of a 50-hour week, and then I'll get the American dream.
Try hard, work hard.
I watch Shark Tank almost every day, so I'm not like I feed into that. Like, oh, Mark Cuban says to these entrepreneurs who have an idea, well, you've got this new brand of peanut butter that doesn't stick to the roof of your mouth. If you just put 100 hours in, that it'll make it a success. It's not all these other circumstances that decide your company's fate or your financial fate.
I think I'm worse than you, Zach. I've been binge watching the TV show Billions.
Oh,
so I've been watching these. I'm watching every night, and I'm thinking like, man, if I just get another $20-30 million and I start a hedge fund, I can make this kind of money too. I could have a Maserati too. I just got to figure out how to get that first 30 million.
But you won't be happy. That's the funny thing is that like you watch someone like Jeff Bezos, where you make money so you don't have to work anymore. Isn't that kind of like, that's always been my thing. Like I remember when Jon Stewart retired, he was people were asking him, "Aren't you going to miss it?" And he's like, "No, it's job. I don't have to go to my job anymore. I don't have to go to work as much anymore because I've made my money." But there is something about this sickness and this relationship we have with money, which is something that I think, because of the pandemic, more necessarily than the racial situation they have now, is going to change America's relationship with money. Because what is being exposed is that what we got going now, this mesh of socialism and capitalism, just isn't working. We have Starbucks as demanding landlords that they're, that they're going to have to pay less this year. We have companies that have been around for 150 years laying off people. Boeing is laying off 3,700 people after, let's face it, a year and a half of downturn between the pandemic and some of their 737 issues. Like, these are institutions that once were protected more and were able to be counted on, and this is after 2008, it's almost a shame a candidate, not Bernie Sanders, but someone like Bernie Sanders wasn't more in the forefront of the Democratic Party right now, because I think that we're all sort of revisiting America and its relationship with money and its allocation of money without using the dirty word of socialism.
Yeah, Zach, that's kind of what I was talking about a minute ago when I said, we got to take this pill and swallow it, and then move on from the next step. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We got to take those next steps forward and then see what we can see, because we can't see where we want to go from here. We got to take that next step forward, and then maybe we can see a little further towards the path in which we want to go.
Got it. Yeah, really good conversation. We could end it a little bit lighter. You've been watching Billions. I've been watching Shark Tank. Toriano, I know you've been out in the plaza.
Yeah,
pretty
man.
Much every night. Not
people, man, but that Spike Lee joint, the Five Bloods. That's my next thing. That's my next thing.
Somebody told me about it today. I think I might start it.
I watched it.
You watched it?
Yeah.
You're not a fan of Spike Lee?
I like Spike Lee. As I was talking to my friend, his films are like either excellent or it's like
weird real quick.
This one's just okay. Like obviously the 25th Hour, Black Klansman, those were two fantastic. This one I'll be interested to hear. It's an astounding cast. It's got Bunk from The Wire in it. Who doesn't love him? And I'm watching I'm an hour in. I'm like, I'm not sure what the plot is. It's yeah, but just one person's opinion. Other than that, yeah, Terry, I watch Billions too. I like it.
Yeah, I got visions, man. I got a plan. I got a plan. Just give me that first 30 million.
If we could all just get that first 30 million, right? We'd all be A-okay.
We'd be like Bobby Axelrod.
Let's finish it up actually with some sports talk. Kansas City of Champions, live there. Seattle, formerly City of Champions as well, live there. I thought of myself as a good luck charm for a while, but that's crazy talk. What do you think? What do we end up watching for the rest of 2020? Baseball, if it does come back, maybe we're seeing 48 games, but I don't even see that happening. We saw Ezekiel Elliott test positive today, which is a violation of HIPAA laws, but also, an indication that I don't think the NFL is going to feel that comfortable starting training camp in 45 days is about when they would start getting back on the field. Do we see anything else other than caddie-less golf for the rest of the year?
My thoughts are, after reading today's news with the Major League Baseball and Players Association, I highly doubt if I'll see baseball this year.
Yeah.
I'm really concerned about college football. I'm a college football fan, being in St. Louis. I don't have a professional team to root for. I live in KC now. I can't jump on the bandwagon. I appreciate the Chiefs, but I'm not a fan.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big college football fan, and these guys are coming on campus and they're testing positive for the corona. When it takes is one, get that outbreak going throughout the whole the whole locker room. If college football doesn't happen this fall, it's going to be a lot of ramifications from that.
And Terry, you played for UW. Everyone knows. What would you feel like as an incoming freshman, or it doesn't really matter, as a returning player this year? Would you be eager to get back on the field, or would you still be hesitant?
So now, if you're asking 19-year-old Terry about how I would feel, I would be hot. I'm going out there regardless. I don't care if we got to play the game with a mask on, then we got to play with the mask on or whatever, right? When you're 19, especially a Division I or even just a college athlete, you feel invincible, right? Nothing's going to stop you. So I would be there. 46-year-old Terry, nah, man, we staying at home. I got kids to feed, man. I gotta be here. I gotta be here, man. So I know the kids, the young men will be disappointed, young men and women who are going to play these sports in the fall and in the winter. If their schedules are affected, they're going to be upset, and understandably so. As a fan, I'm going to be upset because I mean, that's what I live for in the fall is Saturday afternoons, man.
Yeah.
That's my thing, man. So, but I don't want to have it at the risk of those young people's lives and their health and their well-being. So, whatever they decide, hopefully it will take their health and their well-being first and foremost into the equation. So, we'll see, man. I hope for the best.
Yeah.
Right. August is coming up, man. I mean, it's really close,
Fast.
Right.
And I don't even know, the NBA seemed like they had a plan in place, but now the data we're seeing from the last couple of days, everyone's like, hold on a second there. So
we did it to ourselves, man.
I know.
We did it to ourselves. Everybody that wanted to go spring breaking and Memorial Day, we're gonna kick it in the pool.
Oh my God. And they're still partying. I went out to cover protest, and I was, I had to walk a great distance, and I'm coming back. They're out at the bar having a drink, hugging each other. It was the darndest thing. I'm like, we're never going to get out of this. We're stuck. It's going to be another outbreak. It's going to be another outbreak, man. We're going to be out until 2021.
Don't say it ain't so.
The weird thing is that part of the population is never going to leave this era. It's like the way the part of the population never left the Great Depression. Like they would still act like the next day they might have to wait for red light. Yeah, exactly.
Food.
Everyone's got grandparents who you're like, you're weird with peas. It's like, why are you counting them individually? But they went through this era. I think that there is this portion of America that's never going to be comfortable reemerging. Yeah.
It would be a shame. Can you imagine trying to go to a concert right
now? No. I went out to a restaurant for the first time, limited capacity and everything last night. Wow. And I'm still in that mode where it's like masks on, social distance, hand sanitizer every time I touch anything. Yeah. And this is Seattle, we were one of the first strongly hit. And, I know we like to make fun of other regions of the country, but this is a progressive city, and I could not believe how many people in the bar, masks off, totally up in each other's faces, totally ignoring. So we have like these two sects of the population: one who's going to rush back to it too quickly, and then the other one who's never going to come back at all.
Yeah, I'm going to end with this one, Zach. I heard this one today, and I'm going to run with this quote for a long time.
Yeah.
We might be done with the virus. Virus ain't done with us.
Oh.
Man, virus ain't done with us.
Mike.
All right. You can follow Terry at Terry Hallman on Twitter. Toriano, give us, you spent an hour with us. I appreciate it. Plug away on something. What do you got?
I'm on all the social channels. Toriano Porter at Toriano Porter. Toriano Porter. Everything. I'm on all that.
You do great work for the Kansas City Star. And I know you get nothing but compliments about the great work that you do. It's amazing. I see the replies.
You should read my email. You should read my email.
All right, Toriano, really great to see you again, man. I missed you. I missed Kansas City. It was a great run.
Nice talking with you.
Pleasure.
Cool.
Yes,
Terry, Guess it's me, you, and Amanda Knox next week.
Don't say.
Yeah, we'll be doing the show here again, 6 p.m. PST Pacific time. In case we have now a Midwest audience and an East Coast audience, i.e., my mom and dad. So, Terry, always fun. Toriano, great. We'll do it again next week. Terry and Toriano, keep in touch. I'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, sir.
See you, buddies.
Right on, gentlemen. Peace.